meditation is supposed to be fun. It's not something you do as a grim duty. The trouble with religion, as we know it, is that it is so mixed up with grim duties. We do it because it's good for you. It's a kind of self-punishment. Well, meditation, when correctly done, has nothing to do with all that. It's a kind of digging the present. It's a kind of grooving with the eternal now. And brings us into a state of peace where we can understand that the point of life, the place where it's at, is simply here and now.
This moment is the creation of the universe. It's starting now. If you look back and wonder whether there was a big bang a long time ago, all you'll see is vanishing traces. The big bang is happening now. This is when the world begins. You're doing it. Only you're not doing it by straining. A you deeper than the straining you is doing all this. The same you that is growing your hair and coloring your eyes and making your thumbprints and all that. You don't think about it. You don't strain muscles to do it. But that is what is creating the world. Here it comes. Now. So instead of thinking that the past is the reality which explains everything that happens now, let's look at now.
On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having a great day. We're doing the Law of One series, and good session specifically. We've got sessions 19 and 20 today. Again, recorded back in 1981. Kind of powerful stuff. Session 19, going to give it just a kind of quick overview of what we're going to head into, and then we're going to kick it into gear. Also, any questions you guys have, I've got a very good helper kind of, cutting them out if there's any good questions. If not, both these sessions are about 20 minutes. I don't expect a whole lot of in-between jibber-jabbers, so we might have some time for live questions if you guys want to try to do that, or if you have any, even maybe some that go back to prior stuff, whatever the case, we'll see. That said, session 19 kind of deals with pets. I think a lot of you guys that have pets don't understand what a cool thing you're doing. You're actually helping your animal, your second density being, transition into third density. And the understanding to be able to do that is this awareness, the self-awareness, the fact that it's separate from the pack, that it's actually unique. And we bestow that upon them by treating them uniquely. It's done beautifully, actually. And so that's something we talk about in here. So second density, a lot of the discussion around what second density beings are, how you transition out of second density. It's very, very cool. And then self-awareness, again, like I talked about, and the idea of polarization in second density, whether or not that happens. And that's polarization kind of more referring to service to self versus service to others. So yeah, that kind of stuff is happening. So we're going to get into all those wonderful things. This is session 19. This is recorded, like I said, back in 1981, which I'll even say again here in a second. Of course, it's on the Fringe. The Law of One, Session 19, recorded February 8th, 1981. Ra. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of the infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner. I have been thinking over the scope of this book, and will read this that I have thought. We are concerned in this communication with the evolution of mind, body, and spirit. And I would like to fully investigate through questioning the mechanism of evolution in order to allow those interested individuals to participate in their own evolution. It seems to me that a good place to start would be the transition from the second to the third density, then to investigate in detail the evolution of the third density entities of Earth, paying particular attention to the mechanism which help or hinder that evolution. This is my intent for direction of this working session. I hope that this is a correct direction. What I would like to know first is, do all entities make a transition from second to third density, or are there some other entities who have never gone through this transition? Ra. I am Ra. Your question presumes the space-time continuum understandings of the intelligent energy which animates your illusion. Within the context of this illusion, we may say that there are some which do not transfer from one particular density to another, for the continuum is finite. In the understanding which we have of the universe or creation as one infinite being, its heart beating as alive in its own intelligent energy, it merely is one beat of the heart of this intelligence from creation to creation. In this context, each and every entity of consciousness has, is, will, experiencing, experience, each and every density. Questioner. Let's take the point at which an individualized entity of second density is ready for transition to third. Is this second density being what we would call animal? Ra. I am Ra. There are 3 types of second density entities which become, shall we say, inspirited. The first is the animal. This is the most predominant. The second is the vegetable, most especially that which you call sound vibration complex tree. These entities are capable of giving and receiving enough love to become individualized. The third category is mineral. Occasionally, a certain location, place, as you may call it, becomes energized to individuality through the love it receives and gives in relationships to a third density entity which is in relationship to it. This is the least common transition. Questioner. When this transition from second to third density takes place, how does the entity, whether it be animal, tree, or mineral, become inspirited? Ra. I am Ra. Entities do not become inspirited. They become aware of the intelligent energy within each portion, cell, or atom, as you may call it, of its beingness. This awareness is that which is awareness of that already given. From the infinite come all densities. The self-awareness comes from within, given the catalyst of certain experiences, understandings, as we may call this particular energy, the upward spiraling of the cell or atom or consciousness. You may then see that there is an inevitable pull towards the, what you may call, eventual realization of self. Questioner. Then after the transition into third density, am I correct in assuming that these entities would then be in, we'll take Earth as an example, would the entities then look like us? They would be in a human form? Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct, taking your planetary sphere as an example. Questioner. When the first second density entities become third on this planet, was this with the help of transfer of beings from Mars, or were there second density entities that evolved into third density with no outside influence? Ra. I am Ra. There were some second density entities which made the graduation into third density with no outside stimulus, but only the efficient use of experience. Others of your planetary second density joined the third density cycle due to harvesting efforts by the same sort of sending of vibratory aid as those of the Confederation send you now. This communication was, however, telepathic rather than telepathic vocal or telepathic written due to the nature of second density beings. Questioner. Who sent the aid to the second density beings? Ra. I am Ra. We call ourselves the Confederation of Planets in the service of the infinite Creator. This is a simplification in order to ease the difficulty of understanding among your people. We hesitate to use the term sound vibration understanding, but it is closest to our meaning. Questioner. Then the Confederation also aided in second density to third density transition? Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. We must qualify correctness of this query. A portion of the Confederation, which is not working with third density, but finds its aid best used in other harvests, that is the second density harvest, is responsible for aid in these harvests. The Confederation, as we have stated previously in these sessions, is composed of many of those and other densities in your own density, within your planetary sphere, and within the inner or angelic realms. Each of those entities developing a mind-body-spirit complex, and then developing a social memory complex, and then dedicating this social memory complex to the singular service to the one Creator, may join the Confederation. Questioner. Well, did the second density to third density transition take place then 75,000 years ago, approximate? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner. Where did the second density being get physical vehicles of third density type to incarnate into? Ra. I am Ra. There were among those upon this second density plane those forms which, when exposed to third density vibrations, became the third density, as you would call sound vibration human entities. That is, there was a loss of the body hair, as you would call it, the clothing of the body to protect it, to changing of the structure of the neck, jaw, and forehead in order to allow the easier vocalization and the larger cranial development characteristic of third density needs. This was a normal transfiguration. Questioner. Over approximately how long a period of time was this transfiguration? It must have been very short. Ra. I am Ra. The assumption is correct. In our terms, at least, within a generation and one half, as you know these things, those who had been harvested of this planet were able to use the newly created physical complex of chemical elements suitable for the third density lessons. Questioner. Can you tell me how this new bodily complex was suited to third density lessons and what those lessons were? Ra. I am Ra. There is one necessity for third density. That necessity is self-awareness, or self-consciousness. In order to be capable of such, this chemical complex of body must be capable of the abstract thought. Thus, the fundamental necessity is the combination of rational and intuitive thinking. This was transitory in the second density forms operating largely upon intuition, which provided through practice to yield results. The third density mind was capable of processing information in such a way as to think abstractly in what could be termed useless ways, in the sense of survival. This is the primary requisite. There are other important ingredients: the necessity for a weaker physical vehicle to encourage the use of the mind, the development of the already present awareness of the social complex. These also being necessary, the further development of physical dexterity in the sense of the hand, as you call this portion of your body complex. Questioner. This seems to be carefully planned or engineered stage of development. Can you tell me anything of the origin of this plan for the development? Ra. I am Ra. We go back to previous information. Consider and remember the discussion of the logos. With the primal distortion of free will, each galaxy developed its own logos. This logos has complete free will in determining the path of intelligent energy, which promote the lesson of each of the densities given the conditions of the planetary spheres and the sun bodies. Questioner. I will make a statement with respect to my understanding, then and ask if I am correct. There is what I would call a physical catalyst operating at all times upon the entities in third density. I assume this operated approximately the same way in second density. It's a catalyst that acts through what we call pain and emotion. Is the primary reason for this weakening of the physical body and the elimination of body hair, etc., so that this catalyst would act more strongly upon the mind and therefore create the evolutionary process? Ra. I am Ra. This is not entirely correct, although closely associated with the distortions of our understanding. Consider, if you will, the tree, for instance. It is self-sufficient. Consider, if you will, the third density entity. It is self-sufficient, only through difficulty and deprivation. It is difficult to learn alone, for there is a built-in handicap, at once the great virtue and the great handicap of third density. That is, the rational, intuitive mind. Thus, the weakening of the physical vehicle, as you would call it, was designed to distort entities towards a predisposition to deal with each other. Thus, the lessons which approach a knowing of love can begin. This catalyst, then, is shared between peoples as an important part of each self-development, as well as the experience of the self in solitude and the synthesis of all experience through meditation. The quickest way to learn is to deal with other selves. This is a much greater catalyst than dealing with the self. Dealing with the self without other selves is akin to living without what you would call mirrors. Thus, the self cannot see the fruits of its beingness. Thus, each may aid each by reflection. This is also the primary reason for the weakening of the physical vehicle, as you would call this physical complex. Questioner. Then we have second density beings who have primarily motivation towards service to self and possibly a little bit of service to others with respect to their immediate families going into third density and carrying this bias with them, but being in a position now where the bias will slowly be modified to one which is aimed towards a social complex and then ultimately toward union with all. Am I correct? I am Ra. You are correct. Questioner. Then the newest third density beings who have just made the transition from second are still strongly biased towards self-service. There must be many other mechanisms to create an awareness of the possibility of service to others. I'm wondering, first, two things. I'm wondering about the mechanism, and I'm wondering when the split takes place where the entity is able to continue on the road towards service to self that will eventually take him to fourth or fifth density. I would assume that an entity can start, say, in second density with service totally to self, and continue right on through and just stay on what we would call the path of service to self and never ever be pulled over. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is incorrect. The second density concept of serving self includes the serving of those associated with tribe or pack. This is not seen in second density as separation of self and other self. All is seen as self, since in some forms of second density entities, if the tribe or pack becomes weakened, so does the entity within the tribe or pack. The new or initial third density entity has this innocent, shall we say, bias or distortion towards viewing those in the family, the society, as you would call, perhaps country, as self. Thus, through a distortion not helpful for progress in third density, it is without polarity. The break becomes apparent when the entity perceives other selves as other selves and consciously determines to manipulate other selves for the benefit of the self. This is the beginning of the road to which you speak. Questioner. Then through free will, sometime in the third density experience, the path splits and an entity consciously, probably does not consciously choose. Does an entity consciously choose this path at the initial splitting point? Ra. I am Ra. We speak in generalities, which is dangerous for always inaccurate. However, we realize you look for the overview, so we will eliminate anomalies and speak of majorities. The majority of third density beings is far along the chosen path before realization of that path is conscious. Questioner. Can you tell me what bias creates their momentum towards the chosen path of service to self? Ra. I am Ra. We can speak only in metaphor. Some love the light. Some love the darkness. It is a matter of the unique and infinitely various Creator choosing and playing among its experiences as a child upon a picnic. Some enjoy the picnic and find the sun beautiful, the food delicious, the games refreshing, and glow with the joy of creation. Some find the night delicious, their picnic being pain, difficulty, suffering of others, and the examination of the perversities of nature. These enjoy a different picnic. All these experiences are available. It is free will of each entity which chooses the form of play and form of pleasure. Questioner. I assume that an entity on either path can decide to choose paths at any time and possibly retrace steps, the path changing being more difficult the farther along it's gone. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is incorrect. The further an entity has what you would call polarized, the more easily this entity may change polarity, for the more power and awareness the entity will have. Those truly helpless are those who have not consciously chosen, but who repeat patterns without knowledge of the repetition or the meaning of the pattern. Questioner. I believe we have a very, very important point here. It then seems that there is an extreme potential in this polarization, the same as there is in, to make an analogy, using electricity. We have a positive and negative pole. The more you build the charge on either of these, the greater the potential difference, and the greater the ability to do work, as we call it, in the physical. This would seem to me to be the exact analogy that we have in consciousness here. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is precisely correct. Questioner. Well, this would seem then that there is a relationship between that which we perceive as physical phenomenon, say the electrical phenomena, and the phenomena of consciousness. and that they, having stemmed from the one Creator, are practically identical, but have slightly different actions as we tape ends. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. Again, we oversimplify to answer your query. The physical complex alone is created of many, many energetic or electromagnetic fields interacting due to intelligent energy. The mental configurations or distortions of each complex further adding fields of electromagnetic energy and distorting the physical complex patterns of energy. The spiritual aspect serving as a further complexity of fields which is of itself perfect, but which can be realized in many distorted and unintegrated ways by the mind and body complex of energy fields. Thus, instead of one, shall we say, magnet with one polarity, you have in the mind-body-spirit complex one basic polarity expressed in what you would call violet ray energy, the sum of the energy fields, but which is affected by thoughts of all kinds generated by the mind complex, by distortions of the body complex, and by the numerous relationships between the microcosm, which is the entity, and the macrocosm in many forms which you may represent by viewing the stars, as you call them, each with a contributing energy ray which enters the electromagnetic web of the entity due to its individual distortions. Questioner. Is this then the root of what we call astrology? Ra. I am Ra. This will be the last full question of this session. The root of astrology, as you speak it, is one way of perceiving the primal distortions which may be predicted along probability-possibility lines, given the, shall we say, cosmic orientations and configurations at the time of the entrance into the physical-mental complex of the spirit, and at the time of the physical-mental-spiritual complex into the illusion. This, then, has the possibility of suggesting basic areas of distortion. There is no more than this. The part astrology plays is likened unto that of one root among many. Questioner. I just have two little questions here at the end. The instrument wanted me to ask if there was any other substances, foods, etc., that she should not eat or drink, or anything she should not do because she does not wish to have poor contact for any reason. Ra. I am Ra. There is no activity which the instrument engages in which affects its abilities negatively. There is one activity which affects its abilities positively. This is the sexual activity, as you would call it. There are substances ingested which do not aid the individual in the service it has chosen, this being that which you would call the marijuana. This is due to the distortion towards chemical lapses within the mind complex, causing lack of synaptic continuity. This is a chemical reaction of short duration. This instrument, however, has not used this particular substance at any time while performing this service. We believe we have covered the use of such chemical agents as LSD, this being positive to a certain extent due to the energizing or speeding up of the vital forces. However, it is not recommended for this instrument due to the toll it takes upon the vital energies once the substance wears off, this being true of any speeding up chemical. Questioner. The only other question I have, is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable? And is it, wanted to ask about another session, but I guess it's too late today. I didn't realize. Ra. I am Ra. This instrument is well aligned. You are being very conscientious. We request you take more care in being assured that this instrument is wearing footwear of what you would call sound vibratory complex shoes. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one Creator, Adonai. Again, it's kind of funny. Apparently, Ra's drug testing these days. That's what we've come to find out. All said. So it covers a bunch of things, and there was a great question that was brought up, and I caught a couple of discussions over on the side around it. So I'm gonna chat a little bit about second density, the beings. I just give a little bit of a hoedown on that because I think people will kind of dig it. So crystal, tree, and pet. Plants are same thing as tree. It's kind of funny. Just a quick story. Girlfriend frequently, well, not always frequently, but she's bought in a few times plants for me. She buys them because they're beautiful. She doesn't care if they die. I do. I can't let them die. Like having a live object in my house. I'm like, now I got to figure out how to keep you alive. Fudge. Like that's like having children. So again, I've got one that, it's a long story, but still. They have an energy. It's like a pet. I've had pets before. the realness in their eyes. They understand you. There's a separation. They're getting it. You're helping them graduate. So there's a beauty that comes with that whole thing. Now, I just want to point out a quick timeline thing. 75,000 years. We're at the end of that cycle right now, right? So there's been 3 25,000-year cycles if you've been paying attention. First one, no one graduated. Second one, a few could have, no one did. Third one, we're expecting a bunch. Now, to my understanding, this is not only just a harvest, but an actual transition consciously into this next area. I think everyone consciously will. I don't know how that plays out, though. That's one of the things I'm still working with. I don't know, just throwing it out there. Maybe someone's got a good idea. They do talk about the missing link. That's one of the things I think is kind of important on this. We went from that hairy, Bigfoot-esque, no offense to Bigfoot, but that hairy, ape-like thing to what we are now. And so there's a separation, a genetic plane. They've talked about genetics here with, quote, Yahweh, for that matter. If you read any of the stuff, like the Biglino stuff, you will see that the Yahweh concept and the Elohim involved with the Garden of Eden might very well have been along the lines of genetic messing with. So we also find out that there's apparently possibly 3 civilizations that are here. One from Mars, possibly one that transitioned from second density, and one that was already third density here. So we have this potentiality for 3 very different types of entities. Now, I think they get into this in the coming one, but the ones that transition from second to third, a lot of that's where some of the more native cultures have come, some of that more kind of look. When you talk about the ones from Mars very much tie into the Egyptian line. So the whole thing that came through the Egyptian line, the pyramids, all that stuff, that was definitely tied in with the Martian lineage. And then I think you've got the other side of it, which is the people that have kind of been third density for a while. I think that's kind of everyone else, frankly. Now, there does seem to be this differentiality, and this could be there, but I mean, they talk about the Caucasoids, the Negroids, and the Mongoloids, which would refer to the 3 different versions of human bloodlines, human genomes, human species. There's these slight differentiations. So it could tie back into that as well. We've got these 3 interesting bloodlines that do run through us, and we've also got, you talk about A positive, A negative, right? Like you talk about A, B, and O. Right? Not having any A or B. So we've also got 3 different bloodlines from that standpoint. There's a lot of information to suggest that things are not what they seem. So there's genetic messing around for sure. Let's see, self-awareness, self-consciousness. It's kind of what third density is, what you need. Like that's why dogs, like when you leave, they're aware of the fact that, oh, they've left. Like and the fact that there's a concept of they means they understand there's a them. And so that very sense right there teaches them that, oh, crap, okay, then what can I do as an individualized self with others? And so that's what really the next evolution is, and they probably become a human at that point. They used to be a dog, now they're going to become a human that's going to seem oddly kind of not fully with it. You've met a few of them before in the past, right? Dealing with other selves, concrete, mirror. It's just, we could do this on ourselves. You can sit in a like they say, a vacuum tube or a silo. If you do that, you will find that there's nobody that's like saying, "Hey, dude, that's nuts what you just said. The fact that you're having these crazy thoughts is ridiculous," right? Like, or, "Hey, that's a brilliant idea." Like, you don't get any of that. So sometimes you might have a great idea and you don't push it. And other times you might have a crazy idea and are like, yeah, but you don't really have any of that feedback. That's what's really good about having other people that you co-create with, because if you're way off in the boonies, then you're going to get some feedback from time to time. Maybe you don't agree with it and you might fight it, but ultimately it'll help keep you in line. And if you're on track, once again, you're going to get a little bit of that feedback as well. It's funny how the world works. It's funny how co-creating works. And again, it's funny how your individualized part of it matters a huge amount. Let's see. Polarization can show us powerful lessons, and it can. You can go right up to the edge and be like, oh my God, I almost just lost control, right? Like, or there's different times where you can catch yourself before you actually cross the line and you realize how close it was. Maybe sometimes we do cross the line and we've got to live with what happens. So sometimes there's that experience of polarization, whatever it might be, whether you hate it, whether you don't like it doesn't matter really. What, someone else's polarization is their polarization, whether you want to judge it or not, again, or ourselves. Frequently, like a lot of us like to look out to others. That's where we'll see a lot of it happen. We point to others like, they're doing it wrong. But most of the time we don't realize we have three fingers pointing back at us. So I guess that's why I'm having a hard time with that general concept, because usually speaking, it's ourselves. If I'm seeing something messed up, I catch myself doing this all the time. If I see something messed up, it's like, dude, you're doing that, man. And it's like, I can't bitch about something if I'm doing it. The only way I can bitch about it, really, is to stop doing it myself. But the funny part is once I stop doing it, I don't bitch about it anymore because I don't see it. And then astrology, numerology, all these things. There's a lot of different things. I don't know. Tarot, I used to do tarot. There's a lot of just regular poker cards, man. I could play a game of solitaire and get a reading. There's a lot of things you can do to actually allow Source, your higher self, to connect and show you something. So you can ask questions from your heart. You can do it. You should usually protect yourself when you do it. Like, you want to do it in the right, surround yourself in the Christ white light. It's usually a really safe way to go about it. But you want to kind of try to protect yourself in this process. That said, you can use any number of things that will show you. So the way the way I see it anyways, here's how I view it, is you're telling Universe Source, you're like, look, here's a couple sets of rules that we can agree to, and if you want to help me understand things when I've got questions, you can use like this numerology. Like, I have a site that I like to go to. So every time I see crazy weird numbers pop up in my world and in unique kind of ways that catch my attention, I go to this site, and it's just a place that I know, universe knows, like, we're going to meet in the middle here, and I'm going to get some sort of meaning from what are they showing me? What was I thinking at the time, and then what am I possibly seeing? Astrology is much the same. Any of these things are, right? So if it's something you're comfortable with, cool. If it's something you're not comfortable with, cool. Doesn't matter. There's just a lot of different ways to allow a lot of different board games you can play while you're here to find some sort of enjoyment and or answers. So that was that. And I think I got a couple questions, and then we're going to get into the next one. Rowalt77 said, I wonder if trees and plants can communicate between each other. That's 100% for sure. And in fact, they can communicate with each other. They can communicate with us. There's studies done with musics. There's studies done with Wi-Fi, different energies from that standpoint that can affect things. Some people, you get people that can start getting crazy about some of them, especially the alfalfa study with Wi-Fi. That one, I think people get all freaked out about. But there's other studies that have done things. There's just a lot of places where they have demonstrated that, one, plants and trees and stuff like that have consciousness. Try to actually avoid, like, they don't like anger. They don't like they literally try to go towards like good things or towards the light for sure. You can spin a seed upside down while it's germinating and it'll turn itself back around. It seems to know what the opposite of gravity or where the light is. There's just there's this weird component that happens. Crystals, again, like quartz, a lot of us or diamonds, or a lot of us use these wonderful minerals to program and to do things with. Well, that's also where some of that comes from, right? So you're putting energy into something that's second density. You're giving it separation. You're making it alive. You're giving it power. This is what a lot of this is us using our own individualized power to move things forward. So yes, energies do transfer. They transfer not just like because they're the same density, like second density to second density, like a dog peeing on a tree. It's like, oh, the tree knows what's up. No, it's not so much that as it is we're all kind of one working together. But the energy we as third density beings or higher give to trees and pets and plants and things like that actually helps too. So this is a big kumbaya kind of experience. And so the energies from all of us are what matter. It's why I always talk about the teacher of teachers. Like, you guys are the ones that are really going to make the difference. And it looks like we got another question here too. Sheila. Oh, Sheila. Let's see. I have to get back to work. Well, that's not important. I have a question for the next session. Is idol worship a form of manipulation of others? Is idol worship a form of manipulation of other? You can, so the way manifestation works, just to cover it now, and then we're going to get into it right after. This is a good place to rock on. You can, here's just kind of an example. You can try to manifest, to say, an experience with an individual. And maybe that's a physical experience, kissing or something like that. I don't want to get all like crazy into what possibilities could be, right? But like something maybe they don't want to do. Maybe they do. But you want to try to manifest this sort of situation. The way it works is you send out that energy. You do it through your, imagining techniques. And if they're open to it, then they'll just either A, accidentally, B, intentionally, depends how awake they are, but they'll actually sort of respond. They'll actually feel the vibe. They'll be like, I got a good vibe from this guy. I like him. Next time I see him at the gym, I'm going to be like, hey, what's up? Right? Like, or whatever, right? Like, it's next time I see him at the coffee shop or whatever. That is how that can evolve very easily. But if they're not open to it, when you send that energy, it's kind of blocked. And so it can do a few things. It can be repulsive, and they might just suddenly disappear from your life. It'd be like, oh, man, I used to see him every day, and now all of a sudden I don't see him at all. To where sometimes they might show up, and they won't even look at you anymore. And you're like, what did I do? Well, what you did is you had a thought that you pushed out, and it wasn't welcome. It made them uncomfortable. And now they've got a kind of weird vibe. So there is a deciding, a co-creation that occurs. People have choices, and a lot of people say, no, there's no such thing as free will. I very much disagree. There are people that are on autopilot, and if you try to manipulate them, by the way, you will have karma attached to you. But for people that are awake, this is one of the problems, is you don't just behave a specific way anymore. You're now actually more awake. And so it makes it much more challenging. That said, I think it was a good question. Thanks for that, Sheila. We're going to go into session 20. Hopefully this kind of sets things to the next level. We've got cycles they talk about. We've got Dewey Larson. By the way, I forgot about Dewey Larson, and this is probably where I learned from him. There was a whole set of, I thought it was like Daniel's papers or something like that, but excuse me, Dewey Larson's reciprocal system is interesting. I read a whole bunch on this. It's just a different way to look at physics, different way to look at the way solar systems form. There's a whole lot of fun stuff. I'm not trying to send you all down that road, but I do have a British friend, Larry, that has kind of reinvented gravity and stuff. And so this is not the first place where I've heard of alternative theories. We're at a place where I think we're figuring out things are not what they seem. And what we're told is definitely not true. Like a lot of people, or Einstein's theory of relativity equals mc squared was definitely wrong. But it's like, I don't think that was actually fully it. I think that's just what's publicly facing us. I think there's, like, the people that get into the top secret projects and stuff, like, I think they actually have some additional components that they add to their equations that we would consider unimportant. But in reality, they matter greatly. So again, there's much that we, I think, don't understand. And then, lifespan, we should live a hell lot longer. They talk about that. And then imparting power into something. You can do that. We're talking about the crystal, like putting energy into it. Your animals, putting energy into them with love. Your kids, as much the same, frankly. Putting energy into something, empowering it, is an amazing thing. You can even do it with people that might make their own channels and ripple. I love you guys. Here's episode 20. The Law of One, session 20, recorded February 9th, 1981. Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of the infinite creator. I communicate now. Questioner, I was thinking the best way to do the book is to continue working on the history of evolution and the mechanism until we completely make it through the third density and what will occur into the first part of the fourth density, so that the mechanism of developing the mind-body-spirit complex will be brought out. If I get stymied someplace in one of these sessions as to what questions to ask and where, not to waste time, I may ask some questions that I will use later in the book, but we'll try to always continue along these lines. First question, to go back just a little bit, is what happened to the second density beings who were on this planet who were unharvestable? I assume there were some that didn't make the harvest into third density. Can you tell me this? Ra. I am Ra. The second density is able to repeat during third density a portion of its cycle. Questioner. Then the second density entities that did not get harvested at the beginning of this 75,000 year period, some are still in second density on this planet. Were any of these who remained in second density harvested into third density in the past 75,000 years? Ra. I am Ra. This has been increasingly true. Questioner. So more and more second density entities are making it into third density. Can you give me an example of a second density entity coming into third density, say, in the recent past? Ra. I am Ra. Perhaps the most common occurrence of second density graduation during third density cycle is the so-called pet, the animal which is exposed to the individualizing influences of the bond between animal and third density entity. This individuation causes a sharp rise in the potential of the second density entity, so that upon the cessation of physical complex, the mind-body complex does not return unto the undifferentiated consciousness of that species, if you will. Questioner. Then can you give me an example of an entity in third density that was just previously a second density entity? What type of entity do they become here? Ra. I am Ra. As a second density entity returns as third density for the beginning of this process of learning, the entity is equipped with the lowest, if you would call these vibrational distortions, forms of third density consciousness, that is, equipped with self-consciousness. Questioner. This would be a human in form, then, who would be beginning the understanding of third density? Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner. Speaking of the rapid change that occurred in the physical vehicle, the change from second to third density, this, you said, occurred in approximately a generation and a half. Body hair was lost, and there were structural changes. I am aware of the physics of Dewey B. Larson, who states that all is motion or vibration. Am I correct in assuming that the basic vibration, which makes up the physical world as we experience it, changes, thus creating a different set of parameters, shall I say, in this short period of time between density changes, allowing for a new type of vehicle? Am I correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner. Just a side question here. Is the physics of Dewey Larson correct? Ra. I am Ra. The physics of sound vibrational complex Dewey is a correct system as far as it is able to go. There are those things which are not included in this system. However, those coming after this particular entity, using the basic concepts of vibration and the study of vibrational distortions, will begin to understand that which you know of as gravity and those things you consider as n dimensions. These things are necessary to be included in a more universal, shall we say, physical theory. Questioner. Was this entity Dewey, then did he bring this material through in his incarnation for use primarily in fourth density? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner. Thank you. Yesterday we were speaking of the split that takes place in third density when an entity either consciously or because of bias chooses the path of service to others or service to self. The philosophical question of why such a split even exists came up. It is my impression that, as it is in electricity, if we have no polarity in electricity, we have no electricity. We have no action. We have no... Therefore, I am assuming that in consciousness, without such polarity, there would be no action or experience. Is this correct? Ra. This is correct. You may use the general term work. Questioner. Then the concept of service to self or service to others is mandatory if we wish to have work, whether it be work in consciousness or work in the mechanical or Newtonian concept in the physical. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct, with one addendum. The coil, as you may understand this term, is wound, is potential, is ready. The thing that is missing without polarizing is the charge. Questioner. Then the charge is provided by individualized consciousness? Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. The charge is provided by the individualized entity using the inpourings and instreamings of energy by the choices of free will. Questioner. Thank you. As soon as the third density started 75,000 years ago, and we had incarnate third density entities, what was the average human lifespan at that time? Ra. I am Ra. At the beginning of the particular portion of your space-time continuum, the average lifetime was approximately 900 of your years. Questioner. Did the average lifespan grow longer or shorter as we progress on into the third density experience? Ra. I am Ra. There is a particular use for this span of life in this density, and given the harmonious development of the learning teachings of this density, the lifespan of the physical complex would remain the same throughout the cycle. However, your particular planetary sphere developed vibrations by the second major cycle, which shortened the lifespan dramatically. Questioner. Assuming a major cycle is 25,000 years, at the end of the first 25,000-year cycle, how long was the lifespan? Ra. The lifespan at the end of the first cycle, which you call major, was approximately 700 of your years. Questioner. Then in 25,000 years we lost 200 years of lifespan. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner. Can you tell me the reason for this shortening of lifespan? Ra. I am Ra. The cause of this shortening are always an ineuphonious or inharmonious relational vibration between other selves. In the first cycle, this was not severe, but due to the dispersion of peoples and the growing feeling complex distortions towards separateness from other selves. Questioner. I am assuming at the start of one of these cycles, there could have been either a positive polarization that would generally occur over the 25,000 years or a negative polarization. Is the reason for the negative polarization and the shortening of the cycle of influx of entities from Mars who had already polarized somewhat negatively? Ra. I am Ra. This is incorrect. There was not a strong negative polarization due to this influx. The lessening of the lifespan was due primarily to the lack of the building up of the positive orientation. When there is no progress, those conditions which grant progress are gradually lost. This is one of the difficulties of remaining unpolarized. The chances, shall we say, of progress become steadily less. Questioner. The way I understand it, at the beginning of this 75,000-year cycle, then, we have a mixture of entities, those who have graduated from second density on Earth to become third density, and then a group of entities transferred from the planet Mars to incarnate into third density here. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner. What? Continue. Ra. You must remember that those transferred to this sphere were in the middle of a third density, so this third density was an adaptation rather than a beginning. Questioner. Thank you. What percentage of the entities, roughly, who were in the third density here at the time were Martian, and what percentage were harvested out of Earth's second density? Ra. I am Ra. There were perhaps 1/2 of the third density population being entities from the red planet Mars, as you call it. Perhaps 1/4 from second density of your planetary sphere, approximately 1/4 from other sources, other planetary spheres whose entities chose this planetary sphere for third density work. Questioner. When they incarnated here, did they mix? Did they all three of these types mix together in societies or groups, or were they separated by group or society? Ra. I am Ra. They remain largely unmixed. Questioner. Then did this unmixing lend to a possibility of separation of group, then, or the possibility of warlike attitude between groups? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner. Did this then help to reduce the lifespan? Ra. I am Ra. This did reduce the lifespan, as you call it. Questioner. Can you tell me why 900 years is the optimum lifespan? Ra. I am Ra. The mind-body-spirit complex of third density has perhaps 100 times as intense a program of catalytic action from which to distill distortions and learn teachings than any other of the densities. Thus, the learned teachings are most confusing to the mind-body-spirit complex, which is, shall we say, inundated by the ocean of experience. During the first, shall we say, perhaps 150 to 200 of your years as you measure time, a mind-body-spirit complex is going through the process of a spiritual childhood. The mind and the body, not enough in a disciplined configuration to lend clarity to the spiritual influxes. Thus, the remaining time span is given to optimize the understandings which result from experience itself. Questioner: then at present, it would seem that our lifespan is much too short for those who are new to the third density lesson. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Those entities which have, in some way, taught themselves the appropriate distortions for rapid growth can now work within the confines of a shorter lifespan. However, the greater preponderance of your entities find themselves in what may be considered a perpetual childhood. Questioner: thank you. Now back to the first 25,000-year period or major cycle. What type of aid was given by the Confederation to the entities who were in this 25,000-year period so that they could have the opportunity to grow? Ra: I am Ra. The Confederation members which dwell in inner plane existence within the planetary complex of vibratory densities worked with these entities. There was also the aid of one of the Confederation which worked with those of Mars in making the transition. For the most part, the participation was limited, as it was appropriate to allow the full travel of the workings of the confusion mechanism to operate in order for the planetary entities to develop that which they wished in, shall we say, freedom within their own thinking. It is often the case that a third density planetary cycle will take place in such a way that there need be no outside, shall we say, or other self-aid in the form of information. Rather, the entities themselves are able to work themselves towards the appropriate polarizations and goals of third density learned teachings. Questioner: I will make this assumption then. If maximum efficiency had been achieved in this 25,000-year period, the entities would have polarized either towards service to self or service to others, one or the other. This would have made them harvestable at the end of the 25,000-year period to either service to self or service to other types of fourth density, in which case they would have had to move to another planet because this one would have been third density for 50 more thousand years. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. Let us untangle your assumption, which is complex and correct in part. The original desire is that entities seek and become one. If entities can do this in a moment, they may go forward in a moment, and thus, were this to occur in a major cycle, indeed, the third density planet would be vacated at the end of that cycle. It is, however, more toward the median or mean, shall we say, of third density developments throughout the one infinite universe, that there be a small harvest after the first cycle, the remainder having significantly polarized, the second cycle having a much larger harvest, the remainder being even more significantly polarized, the third cycle culminating the process and the harvest being completed. Questioner: very good. Then was the Confederation, shall we say, watching to see and expecting to see a harvest at the end of the 25,000-year period in which a percentage would be harvestable fourth density positive and a percentage harvestable fourth density negative? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. You may see our role in the first major cycle as that of a gardener who, knowing the season, is content to wait for the spring. When the springtime does not occur, the seeds do not sprout. Then it is that the gardener must work in the garden. Questioner: am I to understand, then, there was neither a harvestable entities of positive or negative polarity at the end of the 25,000 years? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Those whom you call the Orion Group made one attempt to offer information to those of the third density during that cycle. However, the information did not fall upon the ears of any who were concerned to follow this path to polarity. Questioner: what technique did the Orion Group use to give this information? Ra: I am Ra. The technique used was of two kinds. One, the thought transfer, or what you may call telepathy. Two, the arrangement of certain stones in order to suggest strong influence of power, this being those of statues and of rock formations in your Pacific areas, as you call them, and to an extent in your Central America's regions, as you now understand them. Questioner: are you speaking in part of the stone heads of Easter Island? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: how would such stone heads influence the people to take the path of service to self? Ra: I am Ra. Picture, if you will, the entities living in such a way that their mind-body-spirit complexes are at what seems to be the mercy of forces which they cannot control. Given a charged entity, such as a structure or a rock formation charged with nothing but power, it is possible for the free will of those viewing this particular structure or formation to ascribe to this power over those things which cannot be controlled. This, then, has the potential for the further distortion to power over other selves. Questioner: how are these stone heads constructed? Ra: I am Ra. These were constructed by thought after a scanning of the deep mind, the trunk of the mind tree, looking at the images most likely to cause the experience of awe in the viewer. Questioner: well then, did Orion entities do this themselves? Did they land in physical, or did they do it from mental planes, or did they use one of the incarnate entities to construct these by thought? Ra: I am Ra. Nearly all of these structures and formations were constructed at a distance by thought. A very few were created in later times in imitation of original constructs by entities upon your earth plane density. Questioner: what density Orion entity did the creation of these heads? Ra: I am Ra. The fourth density, the density of love or understanding, was the density of the particular entity which offered this possibility to those through your first major cycle. Questioner: you use the same nomenclature for fourth density negative as for fourth density positive. Both are called the dimension of love or understanding. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Love and understanding, whether it be of self or of self towards other self, is one. Questioner: now what was the approximate date in years past of this construction of these heads? Ra: I am Ra. This approximately was 60,000 of your years in the past time-space of your continuum. Questioner: what structures were built in South America? Ra: I am Ra. In this location were fashioned some characteristic statues, some formations of what you call rock, and some formations involving rock and earth. Questioner: were the lines at Nazca included in this? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: since this can only be seen from an altitude, of what benefit was this? Ra: I am Ra. The formations were of benefit because charged with energy of power. Questioner: I'm a little confused. These lines at Nazca are hardly understandable for an entity walking on the surface. He cannot see anything but a disruption of the surface. However, if you go up to a high altitude, you can see the patterns. How is it of benefit to the entities walking on the surface? Ra: I am Ra. At the remove of the amount of time-space which is now your present, it is difficult to perceive that at the time-space 60,000 years ago, the Earth was formed in such a way as to be visibly arranged in powerful structural designs from the vantage point of distant hills. Questioner: in other words, at that time there were hills overlooking these lines? Ra: I am Ra. This will be the final question of this session. The entire smoothness, as you see this area now, was built up in many places in hills. The time-space continuum has proceeded with wind and weather, as you would say, to erode to the great extent both the somewhat formidable structures of Earth designed at that time and the nature of the surrounding countryside. Questioner: I think I understand then. Then these lines are just the faint traces of what used to be there. Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: thank you. We need to know whether or not it is possible to continue with another session later today, and if there is anything we can do to make the instrument more comfortable. Ra: I am Ra. It is possible. We ask that you observe carefully the alignment of the instrument. Otherwise, you are conscientious. Is there any short query before we close? Questioner: I intend in the next session to focus on the development of the positively oriented entities in the first 25,000 years. I know that you can't make suggestions, but this seems to me to be I hope that I'm going to be in the right path in investigating the entire development and influences in the history of our third density. Can you give me any comment on this at all? Ra: I am Ra. The choices are yours according to your discernment. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one Creator. Adonai. I love this stuff. Again, a lot of crazy going on. We're going to hit this up. I got some cool questions, too. Really good one, too. Someone bringing up Tartaria. So hang tight. I'll actually get to that one. Maggie, that's a great question. I like it. And I don't, maybe my answer might suck balls, but we're going to go there anyway. Dewey. It was someone I read a lot about. One of my favorite parts of Dewey, by the way, just if any of you haven't read him, one of the parts that I find the most fascinating is his concept of how solar systems form, how suns actually become brighter and brighter, and in my opinion, explains why the sun is more of a white color versus more of that yellow color that most of us remember. I think a lot of us think it has to do with what they're spraying in the air. I think they're spraying shit in the air for a whole number of reasons, but I actually think the sun's changed colors. I don't know. Maybe I'm nuts, right? Don't listen to me. Right? I'm a dude that has a Rumble channel. What are you talking about? Another one's potential energy. Another way to look at that is capacitance or capacitor. What a capacitor is, for people that don't know anything, just to give a real basic of it, is you can have like a tiny amount of electricity, and just pop, like 1,000 million times, slowly like power up a battery, if you will, and then that battery just goes and it's able to and then it just starts charging back up again. And that is a huge amount of power. So a lot of us don't realize our capacitance ability, our ability to slowly trickle power towards something, and then eventually, Yeah, sound effects I'm low budget, folks. But that'll happen. You'll create it, you'll make it, or you'll help it towards what humanity's trying to do, which is typically what I'm trying to inspire, right? Like using your power for good, if you will. Lifespans, 900 to 700 to 100. Like, best I can tell, I think the 700 was kind of when Atlantis started. So prior to Atlantis, I would say that's, from what we understand, is more like Lemuria, that around that time. So that might have been, goes back to the original Old Testament Bible. And they're talking about people living that level of time. So through that, and then something happened, the flood, Noah, we know about that. The flood, we think, kind of happened around after the fall of Atlantis. And from there, we've become where we're at. So right now, we're down to like 100? Is that our life expectancy now? And the negative vibes are what are doing it. Now, they talked about how important it is to have longer lives because, one, it's not easy. It takes you a little while to kind of get a groove going, and then you start to really understand, and you can graduate faster. But because of the dark energies, because of the dark forces, they've managed to remove that time, which makes it harder for us to graduate. And so then what happens is we start doing these cycles over and over, and these cycles are shortened greatly, and we're having a hard time connecting the dots from the last cycle. It's not long enough. The cycles aren't long enough. We don't remember because of the fog that's intentionally here. So it's hard for us to actually graduate. They've literally attacked us from that standpoint. Now, this is like, the folks that came from either Maldex / Mars, whatever, that brought in sort of a bad vibe. And that bad energy, well, again, they want to shorten our life. We can see it through the negative entities that exist on our planet right now, trying to get us to do things that will definitely make us less healthy. And also, they were hoping we'd never figure it out. Powerful, too. Fourth dimension, or density, I should say, love and understanding. It's important to keep that in mind because love and understanding are kind of two components that sort of go together. Sometimes people do what they have to do, and because you love them and you understand. Sometimes love is a powerful force that'll cause you to do, jump over mountains. Love and understanding are very powerful from whatever standpoint. Service to others, service to self. They both serve a huge purpose, and that's a big part of the whole thing. So Tartaria was one of the questions that was brought up, and it was Maggie somewhere in here. She says, there it is. What about the Tartarians? So guys, again, I've read some stuff. I've seen some stuff on Tartaria. I'm not the most learned man on the topic, but I will say what Tartarian stuff seems to me to be is the segment of our history where certain powers, certain beings, certain people, I don't know, figured out there's a lot of secret stuff on this planet and started truly finding it and searching for it, like the swords, these ancient relics, right? There's a lot of crazy things. Hitler was looking for stuff like this, but that goes way after Tartaria. I think it was this point in history where they started to take advantage of parts of the civilization that were built prior, but they were finding it. They were utilizing it. They were playing with the devil's candy, if you will, right? Like they were actually able to monopolize and run with the technologies that were there. Kind of things that have been totally hidden from all of us. And I think kind of led into whoever the deep state is when you talk about them. Like, I think Tartaria kind of got subsumed into who we are today. And they've hidden all of the stuff that Tartaria was. That's kind of my take on Tartaria. Outside of that, whatever. I mean, I hope, yeah. I mean, I think we've got underworld stuff too. We got interworld civilizations, and Tartaria is part of that. Like, it gets a little more fractured and crazy, I think. But yeah, from that simple standpoint. And the last thing I had was the Nazca lines. Those are power. They imbued a lot of power. One, they talk about how there used to be hills so you could actually sort of see them. But two, they were meant to be walked. And during the walking, you sort of experienced the energy that existed within that realm. It's kind of like going out into a yard barefoot. It's like going into a garden. It's like going into a forest. There's a feeling, a vibe, an energy that is beautiful. And when you go and partake of it and truly enjoy it, you'll change. You'll change from it. It's powerful. All right, so Prozac Projectile says, so all service to self equals bad? No, that's not true, just to try to take this in pieces. But he says, so all service to others equals, so all service to self equals bad, service to others equals bad. The proper balance creates feedback loop, which propagates the teach-learn loop. Okay, so service to self is not bad. Service to another or service to self is the same. There's no difference. There's two ways to come about this concept of understanding self and love and understanding, which is the next evolution. It's that matters. It's not that one's wrong or right. Now, there's evil and good, and I was thinking about this earlier, there's the concept of evil service to self versus evil service to others, right? I could still be evil but be like service to others in some weird way. I don't know if that's easy to do. I don't know if you could, but probably. Right, but there is like a way to do that. So I don't think just because somebody's service to self doesn't make them necessarily a bad or evil person. It's what they do and choose to do with that. There's a number of ways where you can actually, care about somebody and then they do all sorts of things because of what you ask of them to do. So through yourself and their admiration of you, and you're still able to make good things happen. And a lot of the leaders that we experience that are even positive. Trump might even be kind of a service to self individual, and he's trying to do good, some would say. Or there's other leaders that are out there trying to do, right? So we've got a crazy place when it comes to that. All right, let's see. To get all your question, the proper balance creates the feedback loop. I think the two. I think we have polarization because they exist because of each other. That's part of the third density in general. It's part of what the fourth density change is going to be. So there's no longer that necessity of having poles where you've got to have a negative pole, positive pole, hot pole, cold pole, left pole, right pole, right. Like you don't need that. You've actually got things are what they are. They are kind of both. They're that slash word they like to use, right? Like the teach, learn, right? So that concept of kind of being both things simultaneously and just variants of each is really what is true rather than it's good or bad. It's no. And so it's an evolution, I think, in understanding and thinking is really what it comes down to, is really truly appreciating the fact that nothing is exactly one thing or the other. Nothing is simple. People that run around and label themselves as something, and like, I'm a this, and it's like, well, man, you're way more than that, right? Like, that's one thing, that's a component of you, sure, but you're a lot more than that too, right? Don't just get hung up on that thing. So, whatever. Me crazy. Think 2000. Do you think that time is primarily only in first, second, and third density as a point of duality? Because for a timeless state to be, there must be a place where time does exist. Time is funny. So first off, I don't know if that's, to my understanding, it changes a lot when you get into like fourth dimension or density. Dimensions and densities are a little confusing sometimes. Dimensions spatial, or time even for that matter, but spatial typically, at least in my mind. So the idea that you could be into an extra spatial area where I can't necessarily see you as a third density being, but you're still experiencing the concept of now. If you're still experiencing the concept of now, you're still, I guess, in some sort of form of time. Now, that many would say, and I don't disagree, that there is nothing but the eternal now. So then time is kind of a interesting thing. Like, how many times have you been waiting? Like, I remember when I was a kid, we were going to go to Disneyland, right? Disneyland was going to happen in 3 weeks, and it took forever for that 3 weeks to happen. That 3 weeks took forever. But swear to God, tell me that I got to go and get a cavity filled in 2 weeks, and it was like instantly there, and it was just like, here we are, like fudge. So time flies, or when you're having fun too, right? And all of a sudden things happen really quickly. So time's a funny thing. It's just not, it's never really, in my mind, been fluid. Like, I've seen it happen kind of, not randomly, but like there's still a calendar, there's still a clock, but ultimately it's always now. And sometimes now seems to skip past a lot of other time, or time seems to fly by. Like, I've noticed this with weeks, frankly. Time is flying by for me. Like, it's already going to be Friday here in a second. So, I think all of us are experiencing time in our own way. I don't think you necessarily experience time the same way I do. I've always felt that when time goes by fast, it's because like you're kind of handling your stuff. When it slows down, it's because there's stuff in there that you need to deal with. And so it's slowing down for you to kind of get control of it. So if you're at a moment where time seems to be slow, I would say look around and see what's the lesson here. And try to get that lesson. And then once you do, you'll notice that things will start to pick up. Because I think ultimately the frequency of everything is starting to enhance. I think that's what the ascension really is happening. And some of us aren't going to make it through it, and a lot of us will. And so I think that's the speeding up. I actually do. I think that's the kind of proof, in my opinion, that this type of crap is actually happening. So that's kind of why I guess, it's really important to me, because I feel like this is some of the best information that exists out there that's pretty solid. Maggie also says, let's see, like the catacombs underground. Relation to the the deaths or the special people, I don't know. We got giants, we got crazy stuff. There's Elohim, there is the Sumerians, there's the Anunnaki. We've got it's so many things that we've not been told about that have been hidden from us. I mean, Tartaria, how that exactly fits in is going to be interesting. But again, we are waking up as a planet that has been lied to about its spiritual origin and about what's real. And a lot of us believe things that are incorrect. Not necessarily wrong. Well, okay, incorrect would imply that, but we are all going to evolve our understanding, and it will expand in ways that will allow us to look at what we once said. We'll be like, oh, well, that, okay, I see where I was at. And I see where I've gone to. I can like it's like going to a higher altitude. I can see further. It's like, oh crap! I never could have imagined being able to see that much stuff when I was down lower. It's not that lower's bad or lower vibration or anything like that, but it's the perspective. It seems is powerful and allows you to see further than you could before. Or as famous quotes have gone, if it seems that I've seen further than others, it's only because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. It offers perspective. So hopefully that makes a difference. I don't see a lot of people. I do. Let's see, pop out. I know we've got to throw some prayers just because it's the end of this. Prayers out to Tammy. Time for Tammy? I know Tattoo Tammy's here, which is very cool. Tattoo Tammy, thank you for being here, by the way. She does some really amazing stuff for a lot of people. People that have had implants after they've lost their breasts. She actually does some tattoo work to kind of make it look like it's like a regular. I don't want to I don't want to like diminish but like make it look real. And so she does great work. Thank you, Tattoo Tammy. You're good. You're a sweet lady. You're a sweet, sweet lady. S. Honus, wonderful as well. Love many people here too, by the way. I'm not trying to diminish anybody, but just people that are very in the middle of my circle. A-Score, definitely, always. Maggie, you're super part of this stuff. Ruwald as well. Again, with pets in here, cool. We got peoples. And we're going to get through this, guys. A lot of change, a lot of understanding that we are the change, that it's us that does this. And so we need to kind of come to that place. Let's see. We got one last question here I'll take. Just supposing for a moment I miss the ascension, but you get to go, will I miss you? No. I don't think so. First off, I think connections are interesting the way they happen. But two, I think we'll always have the opportunity to see each other again. And I think we always know that on the deeper level, right? It's like when you say goodbye to someone, do you feel like you're never going to see them again? It's like Hawaii. They say goodbye and hello with the same word because it's like much the same. I'll see you again. We'll be together again. There is no such thing as separation. We are all one. That is really what Law of One's about. We are all one. There's no separation. I love you guys, man. You got me tearing up at this point. I'm gonna cut out on this point. We got some. There it is. We've got more sessions to come. I look forward to this. I love this, and I finally got smart on how I edit. I was telling my girlfriend about it. I'm like, I just saved myself a ton of time. Stop being stupid. I'm getting better and better myself every single day. I love you guys. I hope you guys continue to join me week after week. We've got a lot of things that I think I'm going to try to bring to this. It's not just what the Law of One is saying, but I'm also bringing everything that I understand to the table. And this is a platform and place where I can do that, I think, in a meaningful way. I love you guys. We will keep doing this together. As I like to say, where we go one, we go all. I'm definitely not leaving anybody behind. Here is my Law of One, session 20 or session 1920. We'll close out, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye-bye.
Meditation is supposed to be fun. It's not something you do as a grim duty. The trouble with religion as we know it is that it is so mixed up with grim duties. We do it because it's good for you. It's a kind of self-punishment. Well, meditation, when correctly done, has nothing to do with all that. It's a kind of digging the present. It's a kind of grooving with the eternal now. And brings us into a state of peace where we can understand that the point of life, the place where it's at, is simply here and now.
This moment is the creation of the universe. It's starting now. If you look back and wonder whether there was a big bang a long time ago, all you'll see is vanishing traces. The Big Bang is happening now. This is when the world begins. You're doing it. Only you're not doing it by straining. A you deeper than the straining you is doing all this. The same you that is growing your hair and coloring your eyes and making your thumbprints and all that. You don't think about it. You don't strain muscles to do it. But that is what is creating the world. Here it comes. Now. So instead of thinking that the past is the reality which explains everything that happens now, let's look at now.